Resuming debate, the honourable member for Sarnia, Lambton, Bkejwanong. I'm sorry, I'm trying.
It's okay, we'll say it Bkejwanong. Thank you, Madam Speaker. So we're here tonight to talk about the EV mandate that the Liberal government has put forward. They're saying that Canadians, 20% of them will have to be driving electric vehicles by 2026, 60% by 2030, and 100% by 2035. Now, these are not targets. This is going to be a mandate. So they're going to force Canadians to drive electric vehicles, whether they want to or not. And there is a cost associated with this because within the mandate, it says that the auto manufacturers will have a quota of how many vehicles, EVs, they have to sell. And for everyone they don't sell, they'll be charged a punitive fine of $20,000 per vehicle. Well, you can be sure that they're not going to absorb that cost themselves. They will pass that cost on to the consumers, and so that will drive the price of the electric vehicles that people are being forced to buy up. So I'm opposed to this EV mandate on a whole number of grounds, and I'm going to outline them right here. The first thing that I would say is this mandate is not freedom of choice. And I really believe that there has been a huge war on our freedoms underneath this Liberal government over the last 10 years. We know that freedom of expression has been under attack with bills like C-11, where the government gets to control what social media content is put up, videos, etc. We've seen Bill C-63, where they wanted to put people in jail in the future if they thought they might commit a hate crime. Fortunately, that one died on the vine, and I hope not to see it again. There's been attacks on freedom of the press, not just by buying the media, by donating huge sums of money to the mainstream media, but also by bills like C-18 that really compromise the ability of Canadians and hurt a lot of local, smaller media because we can't share the news links now on things like Meta. The freedom of religion has got to be a concern for every person of faith across this country because it doesn't matter which faith you talk about. We've seen attacks on people and their places of worship, and we have seen lots of a rise in violence against them, vandalism, all kinds of things like this. And so we see our freedoms are under attack, and now they want to add another freedom. They don't want to let you choose what kind of vehicle you want to buy. They want to make you buy an EV. Well, you know, if somebody wants an EV, I'm happy for them to have it. I'm all about choice. But for myself, I don't want one because I live in a really rural part of the riding, and there's no charging stations. And I haven't seen any plan from this government to put any charging stations in place. And so, you know, I can just see myself, trundling around the riding and running out of juice with no options. So then I have to get towed, and the next day I have to get towed, and, the next day, because there's no infrastructure there. So what I would also say is they don't work very well in the cold. So it gets to be, minus 40. You're going to lose 40% of the efficiency. And we've all seen online the experiences people have had that got electric vehicles and then got trapped in snowstorms and various things and got very concerned about the fact that, they were trapped and they didn't have enough power to keep the car warm. So, that's another risk there. And then also the current technology for lithium batteries is not great in terms of catching fire. So 3% of vehicles, according to the U.S., do catch fire. And we have seen this horrific accident that happened in Toronto recently where the battery caught fire in an electric vehicle. And it actually shorted out the electricity in the car so people couldn't open the doors. And sadly, 4 people burned to death. So I think the technology is developing, and the solid-state batteries that are being proposed do not catch fire. So I think that there is better technology coming. But at this time, with the existing technology, I do have concerns, and I'm sure other Canadians do as well. So when it comes to freedom, I just see this as another step where the government's trying to remove freedom. So what is next after this? Are they going to try to control what you can eat and what you can't eat? What kind of a house you can buy? I mean, where does the control of the government stop? So I have a problem with that. And then also, what are we trying to achieve with the mandate? We talk about how, we're trying to address climate change. But the reality is that this mandate will reduce the carbon footprint of Canada, which is now 1.6% of the world's footprint. It will reduce it by 0.08%. Compare that to China and India which are about 60% of the world's footprint. It's an insignificant change. It's not going to impact climate change in a real way. If we really wanted to, impact climate change, we would sell Canadian LNG to supplant coal and heavy oil in China and India, and that would reduce their 60% to 15%. That is huge, and it would create great paying jobs here in Canada, and it would help the environment, would address climate change. So I just think that this initiative is not going to really make any difference, but it will really hurt Canadians because it will cost us 38,000 jobs and $138.7 billion, and that's assuming it doesn't put the car businesses, the auto manufacturers, out of business, which is a real possibility. The next reason that I don't like this mandate is there's no plan. The Prime Minister was supposed to be the man with a plan. Well, what do you need in order to put this mandate in place? Well, you have to have places to plug the thing in, and you have to have a source of electricity, and you have to have the infrastructure in the residential place that you are or the commercial place that you are in order to make it all go. So if we look at the charging station issue, they're saying we would need 670,000 charging stations across Canada, and we currently have less than 150,000. So how much is that going to cost, and how long will that take? The government has not provided any answers. They've said they don't know. So that's not a plan. And also, to the practical details, if you live on a suburban block, you will notice that they have 600-volt transformers. Now, if you have one person that has an electric vehicle, it's no big deal. But if everybody is forced to buy an electric vehicle, there's this little equation in electricity that says voltage is equal to current times resistance. And plugging in cars is resistance. And if you increase the resistance with the same voltage, you will reduce the current, and you will not have enough current to turn your lights on eventually. This is especially problematic when we think of high-rise apartment buildings where they could have 20 or 40 floors, and if everybody has to plug it in, the infrastructure is not there to supply the electricity to them. And how much would it cost to get that? Again, there is no plan for that. Then there's not enough electricity in the grid. And so, we can see that people are recognizing that we're going to be increasing our take of electricity. We've got 4 million people we've brought into Canada. That increases, by about 10% the usage of electricity. We've got emerging businesses, which is a good thing, but it takes electricity. So they've noticed that there is a pinch point, and we are going to see brownouts before we can build the capacity and electricity that we need. Now, in my riding of Sarnia Lambton, the Ontario government has provided a mandate to build a facility, the Riverside Generating Station. They're going to build a cogen plant, small modular nuclear reactors, and alternate energy in conjunction with the Indigenous people in my riding. So I think that's fantastic, and that will take a certain number of years to get it in place. But the federal government has no plan for how the rest of the country is going to get electricity and get it into the grid with the infrastructure. So again, I just think that there's not been a lot of thought to that. And how much is all of this going to cost? If I think about the government that won't even come with a budget, I'd like to be helpful with them. So here we go. This is from the government's own webpage and finances. They get about $459 billion in revenue every year, and you have to pay $75 billion on the debt, and you have to pay $55 billion for health transfers, and $25 billion for social transfers, $20 billion for equalization payments, $5 billion for territorial transfers, and the cost of running the government is $259 billion. So that gives you $20 billion before you start doing any other projects. But the government they announced $77 billion during the election. And then after the election, with the estimates, they've announced $486 billion. So now we're talking about, possibly $543 billion in deficit before you even talk about building more charging stations, building the electrical infrastructure, building the infrastructure in apartment buildings and neighborhoods to take it on. And this would bankrupt Canadians, absolutely bankrupt them, and drive the affordability crisis even further into the ground. So I think that we need to check what we're doing here. There's also no solution to the roads. EVs are heavier than regular cars. They do more damage to the roads. Today, the system is that people pay a gas tax. And that gas tax gets put back to the municipalities to build roads. And in rural communities, it's very difficult with the number of people that you have and the amount of gas tax you get back to maintain the roads. Now the roads are going to be in even worse condition. How will we address that? Well, I'm sure there's another tax coming, because if it's not spending with the Liberals, it's taxing. That's why they call them tax and spend Liberals. So those are concerns. The other concern that I would highlight is my concern about the whole cradle to grave of the lithium batteries. The amount of energy that it takes to mine them and to process them and turn them into batteries is actually net destructive to the planet. Then, at the end of life, there is currently no idea of how we're going to dispose of these things. So you may be creating another contamination issue that again will cost money to fix, and that's not part of the plan because there is no plan. These are all concerns that I have when it comes to why I don't think these EV mandates need to happen. I think a much better way to go would be to introduce, targets. The automotive industry has said that they will work towards that. The technology, as I said, is developing. And I think people are willing to do something. But you're not going to fix the fact that Canada is cold. So the solid-state batteries do run better at cold temperatures, so we'll see. It's not commercially proven out yet, so we don't know. But if people have a desire to do it, my question again is, why are you trying to do it? Are we really going to get that kind of reduction in our footprint? No, we're really not. We really should be building LNG facilities and shipping it to China and India. That is the bigger success for Canadians. And it would also help pay down the huge $2 trillion deficit that we have racked up and that we're going to keep racking up as far as I can see. Those are things that would be of great concern to every Canadian. And I'm sure that when it comes to the mandates, we're going to continue to see them. I mean, we know that the previous Minister of the Environment, the radical environmentalist that's like a convicted felon, now he's the Minister of Canadian Identity and Culture. Well, I can tell you that that is not certainly my definition of Canadian identity and culture, but he has said so many ridiculous things, starting with he's not going to build any more roads. You remember that? And now this EV mandate, which, it's an ideological thing, but it's not practically something that we're able to afford to do. And so I really think that there needs to be some reflection on the Liberal benches to say, look, we don't have a plan. Let's at least cost the plan. Let's figure out how much it's going to cost to build all this stuff. Let's at least figure out the timing, because they've already set the time into the mandate, right? 20% by 2026. We're only at 7.6%, right? 7.5% right now. So how are you going to incentivize people to buy EVs? We've seen that the government invested $55 billion of taxpayers' money trying to build battery plants, EV facilities, and the downstream supply chain. So they were trying to pick winners and losers. And what have we seen from that money that was spent? Wow. We've seen that most of them have gone bust, and those that haven't, like Stellantis, have announced they're going to move their production to the U.S. So the government has already put out a huge amount of money and not got anything for it. So I think Canadians are right to be concerned that we won't be able to meet this mandate, because the automotive manufacturers are raising the flag. Many of them have already shut down their facilities because of lack of demand. And there's a lot of Canadians, as I said, including myself, that will not buy them. And so, I don't see any evidence of a plan of how we're going to essentially triple in 1 year by 2026 the uptake in electric vehicles. There's nothing, not even a marketing campaign that I can see that would drive any kind of behavior like that. The incentive program is out of money, and so people are not going to pay the additional cost. So for all of these reasons, Madam Speaker, from freedom to cost to the lack of a plan to the cradle to grave, the fact that we're not going to actually achieve anything, all of these things are good reasons why I cannot support an EV mandate, and I'll continue to stand against it. Thank you, Madam